Every now and again I collect together a few musical releases to showcase some of the innovative ideas that musical artists are using nowadays in an attempt to get noticed. Now there's going to be very little actual music in this video due to the usual content match concerns, but this is more about the media than the music anyway. I should also mention up front that this video contains flickering images. So let's start off with something I definitely can't play you any of, but I can show you. It's this 30th anniversary picture disc of the album Flood by the group They Might Be Giants. It's the reverse of the disc that I'm particularly interested in because this contains a series of images that should appear to move when the record is spun. Now, it can't be seen with the naked eye. You need something to create a shutter type effect, and the instructions for viewing this on the reverse of the sleeve suggest looking at it through a phone in video camera mode. Well, I tried that and it wasn't working for me on this particular record player, so I decided to take the record out and put it into my vertical record player, the Sony PSF9. The reason for this is because I can then shoot it straight on with this camera while I mess around with the shutter settings in an attempt to try and get those images to stand still. But whatever I did, I just got a blurry mess. But I noticed that when the record stopped, it almost seemed like it was working at a certain speed. So I adjusted the speed on the record player to 45. Now this isn't the right speed for listening to the record, but it was the right speed for getting the effect to work. So I'll just give you a couple of quick close-ups of the disc. As you can see, it's really like a series of animated GIFs. I think the spinning head towards the centre is perhaps the best of the bunch, the clearest. But if I go a little bit closer, you'll be able to see what they're made up of. Now, there are many, many other records that have been produced that have printing on them like this. This is just one example. The reason I'm showing this one is because this is the one that I have. But yeah, you could list off loads of others that have done a similar thing before this. Now, I did wonder whether those images were supposed to look like they were standing still rather than rotating slowly towards the left, so I tested it out on the other record player just to double check, and that one did exactly the same thing. I thought maybe the speed had gone a bit funny on my Sony, and then I went checking it out on their website, and the official demonstration video also shows it rotating towards the left like that as well, so that's just how it's been designed. This technique of animated discs has many names and goes back a very long way. If you look up Phenakistoscope or Vinyl Zoetrope, you'll find plenty of other examples online. Vinyl Factory has an article about them which has plenty of photos. But there you go, just wanted to show you the disc that I got, and that particular record can be purchased from They Might Be Giants merchandise store. Now, on to something completely different. This is the result of a Kickstarter project that I backed a year or so ago. It's a techno and house album on a cartridge for the Commodore 64. Now, I didn't realise at the time, though, that it's intended to be played by machines that have the 8580 SID chip, and the only machine I can play it on is my SX64, and these use the earlier 6581 SID chip. I should know because that was the chip I had to replace in this machine. What that means is that whilst it will play, it won't sound exactly as the artist intended. Fortunately though, when I backed this project, I opted for the optional vinyl record version as well, which of course was recorded from a proper 8580. So I hoped to do a bit of a comparison, but I should also mention that if you don't want a physical copy, you can choose to purchase a D64 image of this album instead. Okay, so here goes. Now, every time I turn this machine on, I grit my teeth waiting for it to go bang, but turns out we're fine today, so that's good news. Now, the internal speaker really doesn't sound very good on this. I've hooked up a direct audio feed to the camera, but again, this is someone else's work, so I'm not going to play anything more than the briefest of snippets, and also here's where some more flashing images come in from the optional visualizer. Now we'll just have a quick listen to what this should sound like by playing some tracks back from that vinyl record. Well, a couple of small snippets of tracks. Very nice looking record it is too. Here we go. Yeah, so it turns out the record has additional mixing done to it, so it's not just straight off a Commodore 64, so I couldn't really do a direct comparison, but I think it gives you an idea as to what this record is all about. You can purchase it from the link shown on the screen, and all these links are going to be repeated in the video description. With this one, though, you can listen to it for free if you want, and in full on YouTube. Now, from that to this, and this is about DAT, an EP release on DAT from the Rusty Nuts. So we've had releases on cassette and mini disc and digital compact cassette, but not DAT. Well, I haven't seen any. There's probably some somewhere. There's this one here, for example. Now this comes from Lavender Sweep Records in the UK. They specialise in limited releases on unusual formats, as well as cassettes. They've brought things out on micro cassette, floppy disk, zip disk, and in the past they've even made a 1-inch lathe-cut record containing a track called 10 Seconds of Your Life You Will Never Get Back. You can see from that they're not taking this particularly seriously. It's really all about having fun with limited edition physical format releases. As for DAT though, back in the day a few albums did sneak their way out onto the format. Officially, these are more demonstrations I think than anything else, very small scale releases. Despite years of looking, I've never been able to find any of these, and if I could they would be horrendously expensive. These pictures come from my friend Andy on Twitter, and amongst other things he also collects rare and unusual formats, so you can follow him there if you want to see more of the same. But this DAT, this is the first new release that I've bought on the format, and really the only reason I bought this is because of the media. It isn't really my kind of music, but the group clearly don't take themselves seriously either, which I very much appreciate. Overall, it's a fun 10-minute EP that shows what could have been if DAT hadn't been strangled by the recording industry due to short-sighted concerns over piracy. Now, this particular DAT tape has sold out. They only made 20 copies. But I'd suggest if you're interested in seeing what oddities Lavender Sweep Records come up with next, then you should follow them on Bandcamp to get notified about new releases. Next, an old friend of the channel has got in touch and offered to send me an early version of his next album. It's Richard Horton, and the new album is Sailing Through Rainbows of Sound. I noticed on the back cover he mentions the album was recorded on a Marantz PMD 740, so this is a full analog experience. That's a 4-track Porter Studio type cassette deck, a thing of beauty. I often get asked if I could feature things like this on the channel, but I'm definitely the wrong person for the job, as I can't play any instruments. I'd just be looking at this and twiddling random knobs and admiring how it looked but not being able to use it properly. For something like this you really want someone who can demonstrate it and show exactly what it can do in the right hands. One thing these hands are just about capable of, though, is showing you Richard's new record. You might remember that he makes his own records that are unlike anybody else's, with special reflective effects, and those effects really show at best in certain lighting conditions. I really enjoy Richard's instrumental music. I'd have difficulty categorising it. It's a kind of hip-hop beats, perhaps, but mellowed out with guitar. I don't know. If you like what you've heard, then there's more of that. If you go over to his Bandcamp page, and on there, if you sign up for notifications, no doubt you'll be the first one to find out when the new disc is available to order. Now, last but not least, I received a parcel from Rob DeMeo, who you may remember I featured previously some of his stuff when he put together video game music on various formats. Well, things have come full circle in a way, because he now tells me that my video about music on game cartridges is what inspired him to come up with his latest project, a new Game Boy game focused around his chiptunes. Now, it's a puzzle and maze type of a game where the player is tasked with unlocking a selection of tunes. He's also sent me a CD soundtrack of the music from the game. Not only that, just to make sure I could play this, he sent over a Game Boy Color, although I do plan to send that back to him after I've made this video. It's a good job though he did send it over, because I turned on my old Game Boy and it seems that the display's got those issues with the lines on it. It just needs the contacts reflowing. It's a job I can do, but I just don't have the time to do it right now. Now the packaging for this is very nice. It's a long time since I took the shrink wrap off a new game for the original Game Boy. Inside there's a poster and an instruction sheet, and apparently there are 12 tunes in the game, as well as a way to unlock a code for a soundtrack download. The cartridge looks just like an original Game Boy cart, but one thing I hadn't taken into account was just how difficult it would be to get the light angled to illuminate the screen on the Game Boy while not reflecting the lights back into the camera, but holding the screen at an angle that the camera could get a proper clear image of, whilst I could also see the screen in order to play the game. Eventually I found that I had to compromise on this angle, but then when I played back that footage I realised I've been breathing straight down the camera's microphone all the time, so apologise if you're hearing breathing. But yes, this game involves working your way through the levels, finding your way through a maze, and then solving a block moving type puzzle that's reminiscent to me of the game Boxel. And after each puzzle solved, you get to play a tune on a jukebox and then move on to the next level. And obviously things get trickier as you progress. Now Rob asked me not to show the whole game because he wanted to keep some things as a surprise. The soundtrack had been burnt onto a LightScribe disc, which I thought was a nice touch. If you're going to be burning and selling a small number of discs, I think it adds a bit of class over a handwritten disc, or perhaps something that's been inkjet printed. The soundtrack consists of 15 minutes made up of the music and sound effects used in the game. There's no remixing going on here, it sounds exactly the same as it does on a Game Boy. There's also a card inside the box with the link to download another one of Rob's more traditional albums. Now this one I suppose is really more game than music, but I've included it in this roundup as I wouldn't know where else I could feature it. It's coming out in December 2020, details on the screen. Rob wanted me to also let you know that it's being sold in Canadian dollars, which due to a weak exchange rate means that it's perhaps about 30% cheaper for non-Canadians. So there you go, that was a few interesting ways that musicians and artists have used to distribute music. I'm sure there are plenty more weird and unusual ideas being dreamt up, but that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.